knows the term that when we started going to Super Bowls on Radio Row, and we would go find guests, and Paul could do it. We had a guy named Jeff Wood that helped us out, and Craig would do it, or Q would do it, whoever else. We had bangers, names that were going to make a difference. And we had some great guests, but we had bangers. Those were the ones that were big boys, big names. And no matter personalities, entertainers, or even football players and athletes. Here are the games for this week, and tell me if I've missed one here. North Carolina State at Clemson. Oklahoma State at Baylor. Kentucky at Ole Miss, 2 top 10 teams. Texas Tech, because of this past weekend at Kansas State's a banger. Washington at UCLA.
There's 2 ranked ACC teams supposedly playing in Tallahassee this week.
Yeah. That's the one that immediately comes to mind.
I'm just telling you. It's all Arkansas, Bama. Yeah, there you go.
Michigan, Iowa's big noon kickoff.
Yeah, and I
which
saw that
I don't know
game.
if that's
Is that
a banger game. No,
Yeah.
I don't think so because I just don't see any feasible way that Iowa's going to score enough points. So I don't know how interesting that's going to be really. But I mean, I guess TV ratings wise, it would be considered that, I'm sure.
Here's how Iowa's going to stay in the game. In the third quarter, Michigan is going to play basketball.
Yeah, I mean, whatever it takes, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how interesting that one's going to be. I just throw that in there because that's the big noon game, which doesn't necessarily qualify as a banger. But
yeah, and you wonder.
I think Oregon State Utah is really interesting.
Okay.
I think that's an interesting game in the Pac-12. So I would have an asterisk get worse next to that one because I think that's an important game for the conference and for both of those teams. And Utah's right there hovering in the top 10. But yeah, what was the other one that was questionable?
Okay, here's the ones we have. You guys have added a couple of 3. Paul pushed me into the Florida State Wake Forest game.
No, that's the one I was going to say. That has to, even though they're both right there on the fringe of the top 25, whoever loses is out.
Yeah,
no doubt, and whoever wins is probably 21st.
But
it's an important game.
To the wire. In overtime.
And hey, I was wrong. I said last week we were doing our picks that was a game that I wasn't super excited about. I just didn't expect it to be as dramatic and as close as it was. I mean, obviously Sam Hartman was the kind of wrinkle in that game of having him back and healthy and all of that, and just the feel good of that. But I didn't expect it to turn into the instant classic type of a ball game that it turned in. Not a legendary game, but you know what I'm saying. It turned into a very watchable game when I wasn't expecting it to necessarily be that. And so kudos to those 2 teams. And yeah, I do think that sets up well moving forward.
So NC State, Clemson, Oklahoma State in Waco against Baylor, Kentucky at Ole Miss, 2 unbeaten top 10 teams, Texas Tech at K-State after both had huge wins this past weekend, Washington at UCLA. And I thought about that. Washington, of course, has been one of the nice surprises this year. Wake Forest, Florida State. Florida State's been a surprise. In fact, do you have the tweet, the Florida State image? Not sure if you saw this, Paul. You don't have it, Garrett? Okay, find it if you can and let me know. Oregon State, Utah, and then Arkansas bouncing, they hope, to maybe bounce back. Now they have Alabama right in front of them.
This is not a banger game by any means, but I think every game in the Big 12 is pretty interesting this weekend because I think the conference is pretty interesting. Like West Virginia, Texas, I mean, something's got to give there. Either West Virginia's about to take their 3rd loss and be back under 500 after feeling kind of good about the win over Va-Tech, or Texas is going to be in a world of hurt. Now, granted, their world of hurt gets erased as soon as Quinn Ewers comes back. So when's that going to be? Because Oklahoma's right around the corner. And I know quarterback's not their problem per se, but I do think that the thought around him is he makes such a difference for them that they can kind of erase what they've done already, even if it's too late to go run at the national title or anything. So
Hudson Card is treading water.
Let me ask you
respectably,
this.
yeah.
If Ewers doesn't play for another 2 or 3 weeks, and you kind of expect him to probably come back, but let's say he doesn't, they can't change what they're doing. The last thing Texas needs is another change.
No, and I would think that.
And I'm not saying that. I don't know how many they're going to lose.
They'll run Wildcat, and they'll have Card as much as he's healthy. And
but if I think the powers that be that are in charge can say, hey, these are the circumstances we've been dealt. This is how we have to handle it. This isn't having your full roster available to you and losing to a Kansas team that can barely breathe air while walking a few years ago with Charlie Strong. This is a this is a different thing altogether. So yeah, I think they're fine going forward. I think that you can see.
Okay, what if Xavier Worthy's out for a week or two?
Well, that's going to hurt them, but like the point is that they kind of have a mulligan because of Quinn Ewers.
That was my point.
But having said that, like if they lose the game this weekend, like how much of a mulligan do you give them? Because they could be staring at like 4 straight losses, depending on his availability and Worthy's day to day though. I think he'll be fine, but yeah, if Ewers doesn't come back and they don't play at a particularly high level, then yeah, they're in danger of this going sideways pretty quickly.
And it goes back to the conference. Like Craig, you said it was very interesting. Well, where is your game where you know everything's going to be okay if you have to sleepwalk through a half? In this, it's not there.
They didn't have it anyways because of the fact that the team that everybody counted as that was the team that beat them a couple times. So they didn't even have the Kansas, card.
There's like Kansas now you can't sleep on at all, and you have to really know that you're going in for a dogfight when you get there. So there's a lot. Iowa State and Kansas are the game I'm really interested in this weekend.
That's what I'm saying,
because it is very contrasting styles. Kansas is, we all have to kind of admit that Kansas is really good, but have they played someone like Iowa State yet that will not make mistakes, that will not do dumb things?
And I think they're really good offensively. I think there's questions as a whole as a team of just how good they are, and I think Iowa State will be a great measuring stick for that. So, yeah, I mean, I think the Big 12 has some intriguing matchups because there's a lot of teams that are going to have to kind of turn left or turn right based off of this weekend, or at least we'll see them kind of turn a certain direction. But it's a crowded race, and I think, looking at the rest of the national schedule, I think you pretty much hit on the main ones as far as, bangers would be concerned. But because I'm looking around and I don't see any more that I'd necessarily chalk up as being that type of a game.
Kansas State and Texas Tech up in